Hey folks, JR, back for another episode of Fallen Badge. This episode here will be the murder of Sgt Daniel Baker, Dickson County Sheriff's Department. Now, I was born and raised in Dickson County, graduated from high school there. So this episode caught my eye when I was researching for a case to do. Now, at the time of Sgt Baker's death, he was 32 years old. He had 10 years on the job with the Dickson County Sheriff's Department. And he was a military veteran. He'd served with the United States Marine Corps. Now, Dickson County, for those of you who may not be familiar with it, it's located in the middle of the state, about 30 minutes west of Nashville. It's May 29th, 2018, the day before the shooting. Now, the two people responsible for the death of Sgt Baker are laid up in a hotel room off exit 188. Now, that's just north of Interstate 40. That's a Kingston Springs exit. And that's in Cheatham County, a neighboring county. Now, the shooting is going to occur at the intersection of Tidwell Switch Road and Sound Vineyard Road. Now, that location sits just south of Interstate 40 and not too far from exit 172, which is the Dickson exit. It's now May 30th, 2018. Dickson County Sheriff's Department, they get a call of a suspicious vehicle. The vehicle's parked at the intersection of Tidwell Switch Road and Sound Vineyard Road. And this vehicle is parked actually on Sound Vineyard, and it's got a flat tire. Now, Sgt Baker, he gets the call, and he's coming southbound on Tidwell Switch Road when he pulls up to the scene. Now, sitting inside the vehicle are two people. Stephen Wiggins, he's behind the wheel of the car, and Erica Castro Miles. She's in the front passenger seat. Now, later on, it's going to be discovered that it's actually Erica Castro Miles' vehicle that they're sitting in. What we'll learn later also is that the vehicle is reported stolen by her. Now, Sgt Baker, he steps out of his vehicle and he approaches the brown Saturn on the driver's side. Has a short conversation with the driver, Wiggins. Then he walks to the rear of the car and he runs the tag. Now, a minute or so later, the dispatcher gets on the radio and they're using 10 codes, but she uses a 10 code to indicate, is anyone listening to this radio traffic? And he says no one is. So she tells him the vehicle is shown to be stolen out of Cheatham County. Now, when Sgt Baker hears this, he pulls his pistol, walks up to the driver's side, and orders the driver and passenger out of the car. Now, Sergeant Baker's using his command voice when he's ordering the driver to get out of the car. Now, the driver, Wiggins, he goes into his "I'm scared" routine. And he tells the officer, because his voice when listening to the body cam, it sounded like he's almost about to cry, which is, he's not, but it's an act for the benefit of the sergeant. But he tells the sergeant that he can't open the door, that the door's broken on that side. Now, Sergeant Baker, after talking with Wiggins for maybe 30 seconds or so, he does what's commonly referred to as a de-escalation. So he's going to try to calm the situation down, because he actually believes Wiggins is truthfully upset and panicky. Now, what he doesn't know is that Wiggins has a high point .45 semi-automatic pistol under the seat. So after this short conversation, Sergeant Baker reholsters his pistol, and he advises Wiggins to come out on the passenger side. Sergeant Baker walks around the rear of the vehicle and comes along and stands on the passenger side close to the right rear wheel well. And the female gets out, and Wiggins either gets out of the car, or while still in a seated position, I believe he's probably still sitting at the time, he begins firing rounds at Sergeant Baker. Now, the reason I believe he may have still been in the vehicle is because they recovered 3 spent .45 casings and 1 live round inside the car. Now, Sergeant Baker is hit twice in what the medical examiner referred to as the left flank, the left side. You can look at the body cam footage, and it appears that Sergeant Baker was in a, what I would refer to as the interview stance, where he's got the left foot forward and his right foot slightly back, and he's bladed off away from the person he's talking to, because the body cam footage is actually showing the street and not the car or Wiggins. Now, when Sergeant Baker is hit, he turns to his right and begins to run down the street away from the suspect's vehicle. And then he collapses on the street, and he's on his back. Then Wiggins fires some more rounds, and then Wiggins walks up and he shoots Sergeant Baker 3 times in the head. Now, very quickly, I know the question is going to come up, was Sergeant Baker wearing a Kevlar vest? I don't know if he was or not. From the description the medical examiner gave of the wounds, 2 of the rounds traversed the body from left to right. One came out his right chest, and the other exited the right side of the body and went into the right upper arm. The weak point on the vest is always going to be on the sides, because generally, or not, I shouldn't say generally, if there's a weak point on the vest, it's on the sides, because sometimes the Kevlar doesn't overlap. So I don't know if he did or not. I know the pictures I saw of Sergeant Baker online, out in the field, it didn't appear that he's wearing Kevlar. In fact, the pictures I saw, sheriff's deputies researching this case, it didn't appear that any of the deputies were wearing Kevlar, but that's just an appearance. I can't say for certain. So I guess the short answer to this is I don't know if he was or not, or if it would have made a difference. So you have to remember, even if the vest stops the rounds, there's still blunt trauma to contend with. Okay, so Sgt Baker is now dead. He's laying on Sam Vineyard. Now Wiggins gets the body and he puts it in the back seat of Sgt Baker's patrol vehicle, Unit 500. It's an SUV. And he drives him over to an area referred to as Bear Creek Valley, which is just a few miles away. Now, once he's got it in this area, he is taking it off-road behind the trees. He gets some gasoline or some kind of accelerant, and he sets the interior of the vehicle on fire. Now, it does some damage to the inside of the vehicle, and Sgt Baker's body has received some third-degree burns. Now, according to the medical examiner, Sgt Baker was already dead. They could find no smoke in the lungs. So after doing all that, Wiggins takes off on foot, and he heads back in evidently was a westerly direction. Now, as you might guess, the law enforcement response to this is overwhelming. Sgt Baker was able to get out a radio broadcast that shots fired, officer down. And before he collapsed. So for the next 2 days, law enforcement was out looking for Wiggins. Now, the female passenger, she was captured, I don't know if it was that same day or the next day, but she was found hiding under a house. Now, 2 days after Sgt Baker's killed, Wiggins is taken into custody by a highway patrolman. And if you looked at the point where Sgt Baker died and the point where Sgt Baker's body was dumped, Wiggins was just about in the middle, about halfway between those 2 points in a straight line. Now, both defendants are charged with murder, as you might guess. Wiggins got popped for false reporting, premeditated first-degree murder and perpetration of a felony, theft of property, criminal impersonation of law enforcement, tampering with evidence, arson, and abuse of a corpse. Now, later on, the feds would bring charges against the pair as well. Now, Wiggins had his day in court. They brought in a jury from East Tennessee. They kept the trial in Dickson County. They just brought a jury in. And at the conclusion of the trial, the jury found him guilty on all counts, sentenced him to death. Now the feds, all I know about the feds for sure right now is they were going to indict him on 4 counts having to do with armed carjacking and weapons charges, and they were going to seek the death penalty as well. Now the good thing about the feds being involved is they have a tendency to carry out a death sentence a lot quicker than the state does. Now on the female, I have no idea what happened with her. I don't know what kind of sentence she got. I don't know what the feds actually indicted her for. And I do apologize for that. Sergeant Daniel Scott Baker. End of watch, May 30, 2018.